Thank you. That was my cue to start. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished scholars, researchers, and curious minds from across the world. I'm Vishal Gupta, Senior Customer Consultant for the UK region, and I'm accompanied by my wonderful colleague, Anya Satweber, Customer Consultant for Europe. We are delighted to extend a warm welcome to today's thought-provoking webinar, providing valuable tips from our experts around ensuring that your research gets the impact it deserves. Before we move on to our topic for today, request you to kindly go through some of the housekeeping rules as well. Today's webinar is being recorded. We will also share the slides and recordings with you after the session, and please feel free to share them within your institute and with relevant people. We also invite your comments and questions. Please share your questions in the Q&A box that you see on your screen, and we will take up all these questions at the end of the webinar. Let me quickly introduce Elsevier. Elsevier is a leader in information and analytics. We help researchers and healthcare professionals advance science and improve health outcomes for the benefit of the society. And we do this by facilitating insights and critical decision-making for our customers across the global research and health ecosystems. Our diverse products aim at supporting every pillar of a successful research organization. This series of webinars is one of our many initiatives to support the capacity building of the research community, one of our major commitments to the academic world. In an era defined by information abundance, the pursuit of meaningful impact through research has never been more crucial. In this rapidly evolving landscape of academia and innovation, it is incumbent upon us to reflect on the significance and reach of our research endeavors. Are we truly making the impact we aspire to achieve? This question lies at the heart of our discussion today. Our esteemed panel of experts will guide us through a comprehensive exploration of the pathways that lead to impactful research. They will share invaluable insights on harnessing the power of collaboration, leveraging emerging technologies, and effectively communicating our findings to diverse audiences. Together, we will delve into strategies for not only conducting groundbreaking research, but also ensuring that it resonates with the world, driving positive change and innovation. As we embark on this intellectual journey, we encourage you to actively participate and ask questions and engage in dialogue. And once again, thank you for joining us today. And without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker for the day. It is Christopher Tancock. Chris has worked in the STM publishing for over 16 years. He joined Elsevier in early 2006 and is the Senior Communications Manager at Elsevier. I'll hand it over to Chris because I know he has some slides to introduce himself as well. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Vishal. So first of all, hopefully you can see and hear me okay.
Yes.
If that's the case, then I will crack on and start sharing my slides. So they should be popping up on screen. So you should see the life after publication start play. Brilliant. Okay, so yeah, thank you very much for the introduction there, Vishal. My name is Chris Tancock, and I'll be taking you through a few tips and tricks this afternoon on how to get the most out of your publications. So a couple of words about myself. I'm based in the Oxford office here. I'm married with a couple of children. I live in West Oxfordshire. You can see my village in the background here. And in my spare time, I spend a lot of time doing first aid and volunteering with our local ambulance service. In terms of my role then in the company, my role was essentially three parts. So first of all, I manage some of our external blog channels. You may have even read some of the articles we publish there, things like Authors Update, which will probably be of most relevance to you. I write the articles sometimes and commission others and get involved with the editing and the loading of the stories onto the websites. And then I also manage parts of our corporate website. So things like elsevier.com/authors, that's one of the areas I manage. And finally, I help the company to communicate on various different topics, both internally and externally. So that's enough about me. Let's have a look then at what we can do this afternoon. So I'm going to break the topic down into a few different sections. We're first going to take a look at what you need to consider when preparing your research and ensuring that it's credited back to you. And then we'll move on to seeing how you can make a splash by sharing and promoting your publications. And then finally, we're going to take a look at how you measure the impact of this activity. How do you gauge the success of your promotional efforts? First, however, I want to spend just a couple of minutes in illustrating the context in which we're operating and showing you just why it's important to be at the top of your game when mastering each of these activities. So as you can see here, we're talking about some very big numbers. There's a lot going on in academic publishing. Whichever of these statistics you might want to pick out, it's clear that there's a terrific and increasing volume. And as an author, your publication will be competing with roughly 5 million other articles being published every year. And that means that you've got your work cut out for you if you want yours to stand out from the crowd. This pace of publication is increasing year on year. As you can see from this slide, the article growth is growing at around about 5% every single year. So the numbers just keep on going up and up. And speaking about numbers still, in terms of early career researchers, people like your good selves, early career researchers are making up an increasingly large portion of the published authorship every year. So hopefully this raft of statistics shows you that there's a lot of competition out there. Each one of you want your work to be found, to be cited, to be talked about, to be shared. So let's have a look then at some of the ways in which we can try to ensure that that happens. So the first part then is all about how you can organize and arrange your article to give it the best chance of standing out and making sure, moreover, that it's your name that's the name associated with that work. So let's start with a few simple but effective tips and tricks then for writing your article. And I'm not going to go into every single aspect of writing a paper, but just focus on a couple of the important ones when it comes to sort of owning and promoting yourself. So a good abstract then is instrumental. You need to make sure that your abstract clearly and concisely sums up what is new in your paper and why that is important. Be explicit. Don't just assume that other people will understand from the context why your findings are interesting. You've got to tell them. You need to consider a sentence that starts along the lines of, the reason these findings are important is X, Y, Z, and think about what you're going to put down there. After the abstract then, most readers are going to focus on the introduction and the conclusion, so it's worthwhile taking your time thinking about those and making sure that they really hit home. It's always a good idea with regards to the article as a whole, but certainly these sections, to ask your colleagues to proofread these and to remember that people working in different areas and on other topics usually have the best feedback because they bring a fresh perspective to things, so you can look at it with a slightly distanced set of eyes, if you like. Sharing research data is another good scientific practice, and it's key to making your findings reproducible and helping others then to build upon what you've found, what you've done. We as a company, we're supporting researchers to store, to share, to discover, and to use this data. For example, we're creating bidirectional links between articles and data sets, and we're launching journals that focus purely on data for that matter. In fact, there's going to be an article in one of my channels just next week, an author's update, which is all about how you can put these sort of non-traditional article types, these research elements, as we call them, to work for you. So check that out when it's published. Charts and illustrations are often things that draw in a lot of attention in your article. So and they're there to help people kind of quickly understand a portion of what it is you're trying to say. So you want to make sure that your figures are clear, they convey your point effectively. If you need to, you may want to think about getting some professional help in terms of actually creating some really high quality figures and charts. So think about that. And finally, a point worth making is make sure that your paper is written in good English or whichever language you're publishing in. If you're not a native speaker, then get a colleague, get a native speaker friend or colleague to proofread your article. Or if you need to, again, you can make use of professional language editing services. Okay, so another aspect then of preparing your article is ensuring that it'll be easily findable once it's published. Again, remember that your article is going to be hitting the sort of web at the same time as roughly 5 million others. So you need to think about how it is that readers are going to get to your paper to find it and to read it. So search engine optimization, SEO, is something that will help to ensure that your article appears higher in the results returned by search engines like Google. And there are a few tips, few guidelines that will help getting you higher up in those search results. So one of them is to make sure that you use strong keywords in your titles, in your headings. Think about keywords that are both descriptive and also specific to this particular paper. Remember that search engines see websites differently and they pay particular attention to headings and titles. You should also try to interlink your paper with other content on the web, for example, other papers, obviously by adding citations, but perhaps there are other things you can link to as well. So things like data repositories and other infrastructure that's relevant to your paper and to your area. And finally, make sure, and we'll come on to this point in a little bit in more in due course, that the authorship information is complete. It contains all the details of what people might use to search for somebody, i.e. yourself. So a couple of examples of search engine optimization now. So you can see here, we've got a link to a data repository with this particular paper. And then in this one, it's just an illustration and underlining the fact that when you're thinking about SEO, do make sure to pay attention to things like the captions of images and tables, and make sure you've got some strong keywords in there as well. So you may want to consider developing a graphical abstract for your paper as well. A visual or graphical abstract is a sort of visual summary of the main findings of your article that's placed up as part of your article on ScienceDirect or on other platforms, and it will turn up in online search results. And the point of a visual or graphical abstract is to help people to understand the key sort of thrust of your article at a glance. You can use it as a sort of promotional tool, for example, by sharing it on social media or sending it to an influential blogger or commentator in your field. And obviously, therefore, always make sure that you've got a link to your article encapsulated in that graphical abstract. We published a paper on this, an article in one of our blogs a wee while ago on this, and this is a sort of tongue-in-cheek meta graphical abstract. This is a graphical abstract about graphical abstract. So this kind of sums up the benefits for you. So you can Google Elsevier visual graphical abstracts, and you can come up with that paper. It's also included in the further reading at the end of the slides, which we'll share for you. So check that out, and you'll see a few more tips and tricks and instructions about how to come up with a good graphical abstract for your paper. So we talked then earlier about not only making sure that you are organizing your work properly, but also making sure that you own it, that you get the credit for what you've done, and ensuring that all of the different authors, if it's a multi-authored piece, they are recognized appropriately for whatever they've done with that paper. So first of all, obviously you want there to be no ambiguity about who you are, and that's important, especially if you're somebody who shares a common name with other potential researchers out there. So in that sense, the ORCID system, which you can see here, which stands for the Open Researcher and Contributor ID, will be rather useful. Basically, it's something that assigns a unique numerical identifier to your individual research profile, and therefore means that your work can't be confused with somebody else's. I've got a sort of quick showcase of searching for somebody called J. Smith, and you can see quite a number of J. Smiths, 17,000 of them. But this particular J. Smith, by making sure that he uses his ORCID ID, which you can see there, that makes sure that he is not going to be confused with another of the 17 and a bit thousand J. Smiths that are linked, indexed in Scopus. So the message here then is that you haven't already done so, make sure that you get and use an ORCID ID. And it's something that's being used for an increasing number of purposes nowadays. For example, one of the recent developments is that reviewing work is now also able to be kind of captured and indexed along your ORCID ID. So I mentioned earlier on about the point of actually trying to make sure that everybody who's contributed to a particular piece gets the recognition they deserve. We are operating now in a landscape of increasingly collaborative research, and therefore papers with multiple authors are often very common, and standard author lists don't necessarily adequately convey what and how individuals have contributed to the work in question. So similarly, if you're trying to secure funding or trying to move up the career ladder, quite simply, just being listed as an author may not be enough to give you the recognition, the sort of the recognition you need or deserve for that purpose. And that's where another nifty tool called CREDIT comes in. The CREDIT stands for Contributor Roles Taxonomy. And this is a third-party service that any journal can use. And basically, it's aiming to reduce authorship disputes and ensure that collaboration is facilitated by specifying and highlighting every author's individual contribution or contributions to a paper. So there are 14 distinct contribution types that authors can choose from that go into scholarly work. And these range from things like conceptualization, methodology, validation, software, writing, obviously, reviewing, and editing. All those are different flavors, if you like. So the idea is that if you're operating on a journal which has got CREDIT in operation, then make sure you are kind of assessing and kind of choosing the right options for you and your co-authors. And again, there's a useful article which goes into more detail on CREDIT in the further reading system. So I encourage you to take a look at that. In fact, the screen you can see here, the slide I got is actually the homepage of that article. It's a snapshot from the homepage of all those who were involved. This is a credit statement for everybody who was involved in that article. Okay, then that's part one down. Let's move on then to look at part two, which is all about how you can create a buzz with your new article. So when it comes to sharing and promoting your work, obviously conferencing is going to be a great opportunity for networking and collaboration. It's always important, though, to first do your homework, to take a look in advance at the program, to see who's going to be attending, to see which sessions you'd like to go to, whom you'd like to meet. And if there are people like that, then make sure you contact them in advance, send them links of your research, make sure that you sort of outline why it is you want to talk to them. Connect with other researchers then on things like Facebook and LinkedIn and Mendeley and whatever. You can do it linked to your website. You can share your blogs or share links to your published research. And then when you're actually physically at an event, make sure you have business cards and links to things that you can give out to people that, again, will direct them through to the work that you've done. And finally, if you're going to be creating a poster for conference, perhaps something accompanied by flyers, make sure that you also mirror that on your website as well. Then if you think you have a bit of research, a bit of work which you think might create something of a media buzz, there are a few things you can do there too. First of all, if you want journalists and media outlets and even the general public to pick up on your published paper, it can help to have a brief statement prepared, which kind of explains the significance of your research and its key outcomes in simple language. And this is something we'll look at a bit more detail later on. So this statement can be used as a basis for press releases. You can share it on social media or on other channels that are relevant for you and your field. And then most institutions nowadays have PR and sort of public relations departments, media offices, press offices, whatever. And therefore, if you have something that you think will be worthy of sharing, get in touch with them, see what they can do to help you create a little bit of promotion around your paper. And publishers like Elsevier also have often their own press and PR kind of channel. So if you think, again, that your article deserves some sort of recognition and highlighting, then get in touch with your editor, get in touch with the publisher to think to see what they could do to help you there. Just a quick note as well, any questions on this, by all means, pop them into the chat and the Q&A, and we'll come back at the end and deal with all of those. But very happy to take questions, so do jot anything down if you're thinking of something. So I mentioned earlier on that the importance of having potentially a statement, a research statement, which can help the media and the general public to understand what it is you've done, why they should read about it. So another tool that can help maximize the impact of your work is what we call a lay summary. A lay summary is an efficient way of conveying the essence of your article briefly and clearly. And the point is that it's done in a manner that anyone, relatively speaking, even a non-specialist, somebody who's not an expert in the area in which you're working, anyone can understand. So writing such summaries, distilling them into work which is portable, if you like, into a form which is maximally accessible, can really be very beneficial for your output. And your society, your interactions with society at large. So among other things, like we saw on the previous slide, lay summaries would be great to use in press releases, or if you're communicating with journalists or the general public. What I'd suggest is that you challenge yourself for every piece of work that you do to write a lay summary, to try them out on a friend or colleague who's not an expert in the work that you're doing, even on family members, to see if you're getting the balance right. So I always think about it as trying to explain what you do to an elderly family member. If you can make them understand, then you've really cracked it. And a few of our journals publish lay summaries. You can see some of them showing up on screen now. And you can see they don't have to be particularly long, maybe 100 words, 200 words. But the idea is that they're written in such a way that means anybody can get to grips with exactly what you've done, what was exciting about it, and what were the take-home points. And again, last picture you can see there is from an article I wrote a few years ago, which is essentially a primer on how to publish, how to write and publish lay summaries. So check that out again. If you Google that in a nutshell, it's also in the further reading list at the end. So have a look at that. And as I said, try to get into the habit of writing a lay summary for everything you do. So in addition to tools like visual abstracts, lay summaries, research statements, you can also take advantage of different publisher-driven mechanisms for driving traffic to your research. So various publishers will easily allow you to share your article. We've got a system for this, a service for this called ShareLinks, for example. And a share link is basically a customized link that all of our authors get for their newly published articles on Science Direct. The links provide 50 days free access to the article, after which the usual access rules apply. And basically anybody clicking on that link within that 50-day period will be taken directly to the article, no kind of registration, no logins required. And so they're a great way of sharing articles via email, via social media, and kind of really creating that buzz in the early days of publication. And to share some statistics on sharing now, on share links, we saw that in 2018, around about 1.3 million share links were shared by authors and co-authors. But by 2022, that figure jumped up to almost 3.5 million. And for what we've seen, around about 2/3 of the usage of the operation of these share links is happening on the social media sphere. So basically publish your article, use your share link on LinkedIn or on Facebook or on Mendeley or whatever, and again drive that article, get some people going to using and viewing and sharing the article themselves. Okay. Before we kind of come to the end of this part of the presentation, then let's just spend a few minutes thinking about how you can gauge the impact of your work. After all, there's no sense in putting in all this effort if you can't measure the effect that this has had. So the first thing then I'm going to tell you about is one means of assessing the impact of your work, and that's PlumX Metrics. So PlumX Metrics is a system that provides insights into the way that people react and interact to and with individual pieces of research outputs. That might be articles or conference proceedings or book chapters or whatever in the online environment. So examples include if your research is mentioned in the news, if it gets tagged in social media, if it gets included in a policy citation, that kind of thing. And as you can see here, PlumX metrics are divided into 5 different categories to sort of help make sense of the huge amount of data that's involved, and you can therefore compare articles like with like. On the next slide, I've got a quick mini video that shows you how you can use and see PlumX on Scopus, for example. I'll just click play now and hope this works. So this is Scopus. We'll say you search for this article and found it, click on the article type, And then you can see that under the title, there's this View All Metrics link there. If you click on that, it'll take you to several metrics, including this section on Plumex, and you can break those down and see more information about that. So basically, if you have an article on Scopus, then you can look at its Plumex overview, if you like, and see what sort of those 5 different categories have contributed to your articles, sharing and promotion, etc., etc. Okay, so next thing, and the last tool I wanted to leave you with is called the author profile, which is another Scopus-based tool. And the nice thing about this is that even if you don't have an institutional affiliation, even if you don't have a subscription to Scopus, you can still look up your author profile completely free. The author profile is automatically created by Scopus. So what it does is it showcases various indicators for you, including your citation count, so how many times your work has been cited, your publication history, and things like your H-index, as you can see here. So these metrics might be useful for things like tenure, for funding, and for other research performance-based evaluations. So make sure, what I'd say to you is make sure that your profile is up to date. If you know, for example, you go on there and think, actually, I've got a paper that's not showing up there, you can add that. You can sort of use a feedback tool, a profile wizard, as they call it, to add that missing paper there. So you can easily search for, claim, and update your profile. Just go to scopus.com, and as I said, even if you don't have an institutional affiliation, a sort of subscription to Scopus, you can look at this and you can see the kind of thing we've got there on the screen. So this particular researcher, we're seeing that she's got 31 documents that are indexed in Scopus. They've been cited 36 times, and then I beg your pardon, she's got 5 documents which have been cited 36 times by 31 different documents, and her H-index in this case is 3, which means she has 3 articles, each of which have been cited 3 or more times. It's quite a mindful getting into the field of article level metrics, but helpfully for you, there is a nice summary on this on our website, which again I've placed in the further reading section. So if you want to read up a little bit more on how to use these article level metrics, you can do that from that link. Okay, so we've come to the end of our brief journey together. So I'd like to thank you for your time. Hope that was a useful set of tips and tricks for you. As I said, I've got this further reading section, so we'll send this around so you can look at any of these different resources. I'll draw your attention to the last one on these. This is a Get Noticed guide, which is on our Author Hub, which we'll also send around after the event. And that's a nice little summary of some of the stuff that I've been talking about there. And we've got some more collateral on our website, which it builds on that in even more detail. So thanks again. Now I'm going to hand over now to Marita from our Researcher Academy, and she's going to tell you all about the amazing funky stuff they have there and all these wonderful modules that are entirely free to use to build on the kind of things we've been talking about. So thanks again for your attention. Do pop any questions that you may have in the chat and Q&A, and very best wishes to you all in your careers.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was really insightful, and I'm sure our audience does have a lot of takeaways. As mentioned, please feel free to post your questions. We will take up the questions after our next speaker. So let me quickly introduce now on our next speaker for the day, Marita, who is the project manager for Elsevier Researcher Academy. Now, continuing on our commitment towards capacity building, I would like to introduce Marita. As I said, she's the project manager for Elsevier Researcher Academy, which is Elsevier's free e-learning platform designed to support early to mid-career researchers on skills you usually do not learn at university. And Marita has over 11 years of experience working in marketing after graduating with a BA in English from the University of Leicester and completing a master's degree in publishing from Oxford Brookes University. She's worked for various academic publishers before joining Elsevier earlier this year. So over to you, Marita, and please share your screen.
Thank you very much, Vishal. Let me share my screen. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now. Is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah, excellent. All right, so I don't have a presentation prepared per se. I just wanted to jump on really quickly and talk a little bit more about Researcher Academy. So hello, first of all, hi everyone, and thank you for joining us today. So firstly, I just wanted to mention that the recording of today's session will be available on Researcher Academy shortly. And as I mentioned, of course, I wanted to take this opportunity to show you the platform and some additional resources that you may find useful. So as Vishal mentioned, of course, Researcher Academy is Elsevier's free e-learning platform designed to support early to mid-career researchers on skills they don't learn at university. There are over 700,000 annual unique visitors to the platform from across the globe, and over 100,000 annual new registrants. And last year, we had over 130,000 visits from Europe alone. So this is the homepage of the platform, as you can see here. Researcher Academy supports researchers throughout their research journey, covering the full research cycle. So as you can see here, of course, we start with research preparation, writing for research, all the way through communicating your research. We produce our e-learning modules in collaboration with global experts from institutes including Harvard and the Gates Foundation, as well as internal experts, including publishers, editors, Mendeley and Scopus. We have over 300 modules now that cover areas from research preparation, the phases of the publishing cycle, and right through to demonstrating social impact and ensuring visibility. We also supplement each module with downloadable guides and relevant resources, such as video interviews with experts. You can, of course, access all of the modules and all of the additional resources for free, simply by creating a free account with us or by signing in using your existing Elsevier logins. So simply, if you click on the button here, you can either sign in or create a free account. So I wanted to show you, obviously, the platform a little bit more. So if we start with research preparation as the first stage in your research journey, if I click on the Learn button here, you'll be able to see all the various topics that fall under each of the stages. But yeah, starting with research preparation, we've got funding, we've got research design, research collaborations, and so on and so forth. So if I really quickly click on funding, for example, you should be able to see 3 modules that focus on funding as a main topic, from how to secure funding to writing a successful research grant application. Moving on, of course, writing for research is the second stage in this case. Within fundamentals of manuscript preparation, you should be able to find various modules that focus on, preparing your research, of course. Chris mentioned earlier in his presentation, graphical or visual abstracts, and of course the benefits of creating one for your paper. Here you'll be able to actually watch modules that provide tips to make your visual abstracts accessible and engaging. So if you're interested in this aspect, of course, feel free to jump on the platform and find these free resources that you can benefit from. Additionally, so under publication process, of course, that's the next stage. In this case, I wanted to quickly focus on research metrics as the main topic here. You'll be able to find modules, if I click on it, you'll be able to find modules that focus on the various impact metrics, providing information on where you can find them, and most importantly, how to use them responsibly. Obviously, Chris mentioned PlumX earlier in his presentation as well. So if you want to find a little bit more about that, I encourage you to check out this module specifically. Within publication process, I also wanted to highlight finding the right journal. We recently ran a live webinar that focused on rejected manuscripts and obviously what the next steps can be once a manuscript is rejected and how you can find the right fit for your research as well. So just another preview of what other additional resources you are able to find on Researcher Academy. Within navigating peer review, this is obviously the next step as well here. We offer different topics that focus on various aspects depending on where you are in your career and your journey. So if you want to become a peer reviewer, you have the option to complete the certified peer reviewer course, for example, learn a little bit more about peer review in general. Or if you're actually going through peer review, you can actually click on this topic here and learn a little bit more as to how you can respond to reviewers' comments, or how editors look at your paper as well. Then finally, the last stage, of course, in the research journey is communicating your research. Of course, ensuring visibility is where the recording of today's session will be hosted. And here, if I click on it, you can find additional resources that will help you promote your publications and increase the visibility of your work. The other thing I wanted to show you is within social impact. I know that Chris mentioned lay summaries as another way to increase the impact of your work. So within social impact, we do have a dedicated module that explains a little bit more how to write a lay summary and obviously the benefits that come with that. So if you're interested in this topic as well, I encourage you to check this module out. Another aspect of Researcher Academy, aside from the research journey that we follow here, is the career path section. So if I click on career path here, I just wanted to show you that we provide help and guidance by these modules that focus on career planning, job search, and career guidance as well. And the last thing I wanted to mention is, of course, the fact that once you complete any of these modules or an entire topic, it actually comes with rewards. So researchers are recognized with a personalized certificate of completion after completing each module. And that also provides a 10% discount at the Elsevier Author Webshop. And if you actually complete an entire topic, you will receive a certificate of excellence. And along with that, you will also get a 25% discount on most Elsevier books. The last thing I wanted to mention, because I don't want to take too much more time, is basically a couple of upcoming events. Firstly, this month, let me just click on that as well. We do have a live webinar on diversity, equity, and inclusion at Cell Press. So if you're interested, of course, in the topic, I will encourage you to register on the site. And also coming up in November, we will have a live webinar on generative AI, where we'll have experts talk about its responsible use and any opportunities and risks associated. So stay tuned, and we'll soon be providing additional information on the platform. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Thank you very much for your time. Let me just, sorry, I apologize. Let me just stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you so much, Marita. Another thing that I would quickly like to add is, all these courses are very short courses, so they won't take a lot of your time. We have courses with 5 minutes courses up to, an hour of courses. So there's a huge variety. You can learn a lot in a short period of time. So please feel free to access these resources. I would now like to invite Anya. Anya, do we have any questions or that we have collected before or after? Yeah.
Yeah, there is a question for Christopher. Would you recommend recording a video to introduce my work?
Yeah, interesting question, because actually I mentioned a little while earlier in my presentation that we're going to be publishing an article in Authors Update just next week on what we call research elements. So we have a whole suite of journals that are aimed at publishing what's called non-traditional article types. So it could be data, it could be software, it could be things like videos about your work. And in fact, one of them, Science Talks, is just that. But even if it's not the sole sort of purpose of the journal, it may very well be a good idea to have a quick summary. And I would stress, make it quick, make it max 2 minutes or something. But yeah, absolutely create something, especially if you think there's going to be a little bit of a buzz, something that, it's exciting, you want to sort of tell the world, so to speak, and challenge yourself again to do so in a way which is maximally accessible. Think about it, script it in beforehand, think about the things you want to cover, and think about the language you're going to use in that video. Make it as as open, as accessible as possible. So like we were saying with the lay summaries, if you can pitch it and your aunt can understand it, then that's it, you've smashed it. But obviously, it may be that you need something which is more dedicated towards a funder or whatever it may be. So, horses for courses, as we say in English. Make sure you choose the right tool for the right job. But yeah, summary is absolutely good idea. Yeah, create a video abstract if you like.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you. I have also another question for you, Christopher. Is there anything you would definitely not recommend to do? So let's put it the other way around.
There are many things I would recommend not to do. It's quite a broad question that. I don't quite know where we're going for, but I mean, one of the basics that I come across quite a bit, and the bugbear of many journal publishing operations is it's frustrating, right? Trying to submit and having to wait for the outcome of the peer review process in a journal sometimes, but you've got to let it run its course. You've got to wait. So the point here is don't submit to more than one journal at a time. Wait until the outcome of that particular process is known. Because we all operate in a relatively small world in terms of our areas of focus. So if you end up submitting to 2 journals, then it's very likely that those 2 editors are going to talk to each other, or they're going to send it out to the same reviewers who are both going to go, actually, I'm seeing this on this journal and this journal, and therefore that gets back to the editors, and you get a big black mark, and essentially your work goes no further each of those journals, and obviously they may tell their wider communities as well. So that's definitely something I'd not do.
Yeah, I see. Thank you, Chris. There is a question. Is it? I think this one is for Marika. Is it possible to select more than one area of interest on the Researcher Academy site?
So you should be able to select more than one area of interest. I believe that's when you create your account. So yes, you should be able to do that. Admittedly, obviously, with the resources available, we don't focus on a specific area. But of course, if we have any dedicated modules, we can share information to you specifically. So yes, you should be able to do that.
Wonderful, thank you. I think this is for Christopher again. There have been some examples of research that have had unintended negative consequences. How can a researcher avoid such outcomes?
Negative consequences. So basically, for example, you're trying to do an experiment and it doesn't go quite the way you hoped for, that kind of thing. Absolutely, yeah, that does happen. But I personally argue that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? So it's just as useful to know about things that don't work and the experiments that go awry as the ones that succeed. And I think there's been a bit of a recognition of this fact in scholarship in the last few years, and a sort of an embracing of the value of negative results. And in fact, we have journals on negative results. It's perfectly possible and valid and useful to be publishing that as well. So just because your experiment doesn't work, don't just chuck it in the bin and assume that's just a failure and you can't do anything with it. No, because there can be other researchers out there who are going to be thinking about the same kind of thing, and it'll be very useful for them to know that way doesn't work, and therefore they can put their energies into a different kind of different route. So I absolutely think about the value there, just like we were saying with these non-traditional article types. There's value, there's going to be some use for all of that for the community at large.
I think, Chris, it could mean something else as well, because when they say unintended negative consequences, I'm assuming that the intention of the author was something else, and there was unintended negative the article may have been taken up negatively by a larger group of audience. So how to tackle with that, probably? Do you have any suggestions on that?
Yeah, not honestly sure. obviously your articles can provoke reactions on all sort of areas of the spectrum, and I think that happens again as part of scholarship. So some people will take not necessarily offence, but they will disagree, or they will, you know, maybe sort of come back with their own thinking on that, and that kind of interplay, that back and forth, that sort of respectful but scientific argument it plays out all the time in journals. So you will get letters to the editor, and you'll get rebuttals, and you'll get this and you get that, and that's just the part and parcel of operating in the academic publishing sphere. You know, to say keep it pleasant, keep it polite, and you know, everybody can necessarily agree to disagree, but that's where you actually want then your sort of your calculations, your sums, if you like, your spelling out to be really good. So all those things that we saw in terms of stuff like data and your supplementary material, that potentially, although it may not have been vital for the original piece of published research, that could be proved really useful in terms of actually making your point, or showing, you know, why it is that you are right, and why you were sort of right to say whatever it is, to conclude whatever it is you concluded, to make the assessment that you did with your research. So yeah, that's something you definitely should sort of think about packaging up with your article, and it's more and more expected nowadays that there will be sort of an opening up of the sort of the calculations, the methodologies, the experiment data, all that kind of thing, so that if necessary, others can reproduce your work. You know, we have this reproducibility crisis in science, but again, like with the value of negative research, there's an increasing recognition that the reproducibility of research is something that needs to be tackled, and journals are working towards that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we are playing a little bit of ping pong here, because there's another question for Marita. Is it possible to propose new topics for the Researcher Academy? And if so, what would the process be?
Yes, absolutely it is. So on the website itself, we do have a feedback button where you're able to actually provide, you know, your suggestions about what topics you would like to cover. So that's one way to do that. We also have a support link as well, where there's a form that you can fill out and reach out to us in that way as well. So yeah, your suggestions are more than welcome, and that's the whole purpose of the platform, to support researchers like yourself. So your suggestions are more than valuable.
Thank you. Just a question from my side. Is there any alert on the Researcher Academy, so that I get something in the email, for example, if something new has added, new content?
Yes, yeah. So when you create an account with Researcher Academy, you are opted in to receive our monthly newsletter. Obviously, you have the option to opt out at any point, but this is one of the easiest ways to receive emails directly in your inbox and see what's new on the platform. Additionally, we do have our Twitter channel, and we recently just launched an Instagram account as well. And that's obviously, again, one of the main sort of channels that we use to publicize new content available on the platform. So if you wanted to follow us on either Twitter or Instagram, it's @ResearcherAcad.
Thank you, Marita.
Sure.
So there are, I guess, no new questions. So if you have any question, please submit them now. That's your chance now to get your question answered.
I think we've covered most of it, Anya. So I think, yeah. So thank you so much. In closing, I would just like to say that today's webinar has underscored the paramount importance of ensuring that your research leaves a meaningful impact. Whether you're an academic, a scientist, or a professional, the key takeaway is clear. Thoughtful planning, effective communication, and collaborations are the cornerstones of impactful research. Let your research not only advance, but also make a tangible difference in this world. Thank you for joining us, and I would like to thank our speakers, Chris and Marita, for sharing their knowledge with all of us. And we'll see you at another of our webinars. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good
bye
day.
bye.